What happens when you wake up after 30 years of marriage and you realize that you have nothing in common with your spouse? If you feel alone in your own home, then you are not alone. But I want you to know that there is hope for you. Hey, everybody, my name is Wade Arnold, and I am a psychologist, a pastor, an author, and a marriage mentor for Christian couples. And today I am doing another video based on questions that people have sent me in one of the marriage groups that I belong to. And here's what they wrote to me. This person writes, "How do I reconnect with my husband? We've been married for 30 years and we don't have anything in common. We don't communicate at all. I'm nervous to bring anything up because he is emotionally unavailable. He works and volunteers at church and he is rarely at home. I'm lonely and would love to have a connection. I was a stay at home mom and now I'm just alone. We aren't on the same page about our finances, our 20-year-old failure to launch son, or our lack of intimacy. I feel like I have no voice." This is a lot more common than this writer might think. And it may not be 30 years, it could be 10 years or 20 years. It could be 45 years. I've had a couple that I've actually worked with that was married that long that was in a very similar situation. And I can tell you that oftentimes what ends up happening is the kids get out of the house and then they look at each other, the husband and the wife do, and they don't feel like they have anything in common. They've spent all of their energy up to that point, or a lot of it anyway, focused on the kids and let's get the kids raised. And oftentimes the relationship, the marriage itself, has taken a back seat. And that's what this couple is experiencing. So, to you, I would say this. There's several things that I want to bring to your attention. 6 things that I want to point out. Number one, even though you feel lonely, you are not alone in your loneliness. God sees you. Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted, and he saves those who are crushed in spirit." Even when you feel invisible in your own home, you are never not seen by God. Your feelings are valid, yes, and they deserve compassion, but not shame. And so you don't need to be ashamed that your marriage is not where it needs to be or where you want it to be right now. God sees you. And you can remember the story of Hagar when Sarah kicked her out of their house, Abraham and Sarah, when Sarah kicked Hagar out. She went into the desert and despaired life, and yet God provided for her, and she named him El Roy. Not that she named him that, but she recognized him as El Roy, the God who sees. And God sees you in the middle of this loneliness, in the middle of this sadness at the disconnection that you're experiencing. God sees you in that. So even though you feel lonely, I want you to know that you are not alone. Call out to him and he will see you. The second thing that I want to point out is that it's going to be a really good idea for you to name the hurt. When we are feeling lonely and we're feeling disconnected, when our communication has faded away over the years, when you feel unheard and alone, it's good to be able to name that. And not only for yourself, but also for your spouse. I know that this is deeply, deeply painful when you feel like you are utterly alone with the person that you pledged your life to. And it is okay now to mourn the loss of that connection, but it doesn't have to stay that way. You had hoped for something more, and somehow it didn't work out that way yet, but that doesn't mean that it cannot work out that way. So naming your pain before God and giving it to him is the first step toward healing. Pour out your heart to him. He welcomes the honesty that you will give him. We know that from many Psalms, including Psalm 62:8. So name the hurt, call out to God, and he will hear you. He will listen to you. The third thing that I would want to point out is that you can take very small steps toward connection. I know it can be overwhelming to kind of try to fix everything all at once, especially if your husband or your wife, but in this case of this writer, if your husband feels very disconnected or emotionally unavailable, and especially if they're rarely home. So here are a few ways, three different ways that you might uh, seek out connection with your husband or with your spouse again. The first thing you want to do is you want to pray for your husband and for your marriage. Ask God to soften both your hearts and open doors of connection, even in the smallest ways. You're not going to jump from feeling very disconnected to feeling very connected all in one big leap. It's going to be baby steps. It's going to be small steps that you take incrementally over time. Now, I'm not saying that God can't do that. But normally, the way that God works is through our efforts of making connection, and it's going to take time to reconnect uh, in a way that you both feel really good about. So, it's also a good idea to begin to think about your relationship with curiosity and not confrontation. If you get a moment together, you can start by just expressing interest in what he's doing in his day, his work, his at volunteering at church. Sometimes just asking, "How was your day?" And maybe even more specifically, I don't think that that's necessarily a good question, but it could be a good starting point. Is you could ask, "What was the best part of your day? What are you most grateful for today?" And this plant seeds, and he may not respond, but he might, and it may very well be that that just cracks the door open to having a little bit of conversation. And so start small. The third thing that you will want to do in cracking the door open for communication is share your heart vulnerably, with vulnerability, I should say. When the time is right, just gently share your feelings. Use I statements like, I feel very lonely. And I miss connecting with you. I really want to spend time with you and know what's going on with you in your life. The last thing that you want to do is blame him. Like, you never spend time with me. That's going to lead to defensiveness, and it's going to only push your partner further away, right? So focus on your longing, your desire for intimacy. Then you will be able to start taking those small steps toward reconnecting with your spouse. The fourth thing that you can do is you want to reclaim your voice. Proverbs 31:26 says, "She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is in her tongue." You have a voice, as we all do, that is meant to speak words of love and kindness. In fact, one of the things that the couples who work with me hear me repeat over and over and over again is Colossians 3:12. And I think if we can just do the five things that are located in that verse, then we're going to have a much better marriage. And so here's what Colossians 3:12 says. It says, "So as those who have been chosen of God, holy and beloved, put on a heart of compassion and kindness and gentleness and humility and patience." If we can just do those five things, not only will our marriage get better, but any relationship that we deploy those five virtues into are going to be much better. We can improve our relationships with our parents, our children, our coworkers, anyone, just by simply adding compassion, kindness, gentleness, humility, and patience into the relationship, regardless of what we get back. If we focus on deploying those five virtues, then we are going to have better relationships. Another thing with regard to reclaiming your voice is that boundaries are biblical. It's okay to say, "I need this," or "I don't like this," even if you don't particularly like his reaction or you're afraid of how he might react. It's okay to say yes or no to something that you want or don't want. If you feel unsafe emotionally or in the relationship, you might want to write a letter and get a little bit of physical, psychological, emotional distance. Or you might want to engage a Christian counselor or a marriage mentor like myself that can help you begin this conversation. The other thing that you want to do with reclaiming your voice is seek support. You're not to do this alone. It's not incumbent upon you that you be this solo hero, this rugged individualist that we admire so much in our American culture, but you're not meant to carry it alone. So consider reaching out to a trusted friend or a pastor, or again, a counselor or a coach who can help you walk through this so that you can begin the process of restoring your marriage and reclaiming your marriage and creating the kind of marriage that you hoped for at this stage in your life. The fifth thing that you can do is pray and work toward connection in your marriage, but also invest in your spiritual and emotional health. So develop some community for yourself. So serve or join in a study group or in a service group in your church or in your community if you're not already involved. And you may already be involved, but really, if you already are involved, then double down and really get involved in that and seek companionship and closer connection with the people in that group. And then another thing that you might do with regard to finding meaning and community is to rediscover your gifts. Like, what is it that you're really passionate about? Especially in this case, because the woman who wrote this to me was a stay at home mom. And so she gave up a career and she focused on rearing children and so on and so forth. And it's easy in that scenario to be disconnected from your gifts and your interests and your passions. And so the question to ask is, what brings me joy? What brings me fulfillment? It's not selfish to pursue these things. In fact, it's godly to do that. God has placed in you, He's placed in every one of us gifts and talents that He wants us to use for Him and for His glory and for His kingdom. That's how God made you. That's how God made all of us with each of these gifts. Finally, I want you to think about this. I want you to think about the hope that you have in the future. Nothing, and I mean nothing, is impossible with God. We learned that in Luke 137. Even if your husband or if your spouse is not ready to change, you can bring change to your relationship just by changing the way that you interact with him. God can make these dry bones walk again, right? So keep praying and keep trusting and keep moving forward, seeking out small moments of connection. And before you know it, each one of those raindrops of connection will fill the bucket and then fill the ocean with a relationship full of joy and connection. So if you'd like, I can suggest some conversation starters for you. I have some sample prayers or some resources for couples just in this kind of situation. So please know that you are not alone and that this longing for connection that you have with your spouse is something that God placed in you. That's the way God made you. It's also the way that God made your husband and or your wife. And who knows, they may be feeling the same way. They may feel the same type of disconnection that you are feeling. And so I want you to know, above all, from this video, that you are not alone in your loneliness. God is with you. God sees you. And so pray to God that He will give you strength and wisdom and hope for each and every day. God bless you, and I hope to hear from you soon.